All right, welcome. In this video, we are going to talk about ionic bonds and how to predict what charges of ions different elements will form. And an ionic bond is something that occurs when a metal and a nonmetal combine. And in an ionic bond, a metal atom will give some of its electrons to a nonmetal atom, creating two ions. So when the metal loses electrons, it forms a positive ion. When the nonmetal gains electrons, it forms a negative ion. And as a result, those opposite charges attract. We call that attraction an electrostatic attraction. And that is what the ionic bond is. It's the attraction between these two ions, the positive ion and the negative ion. So we're going to take a look at how these ions form, and our goal is to be able to predict what ion a certain element will form. So let's look at an example here at lithium. Okay, so lithium is element 3 on the periodic table. It's got 3 protons. It's got 4 neutrons. So notice in this table, we've got some kind of color-coded things here. The neutrons are blue. The protons are red. I'll make a little key here. And then the electrons are yellow. Okay, and it looks like in this diagram, this atom has 3 protons, it's got 4 neutrons, and it has 3 electrons. So we should notice in a neutral atom, the number of positive protons is going to be the same as the number of these negative electrons. So protons have a positive charge, electrons have a negative charge, neutrons have 0 charge. So when I look at the overall charge of this atom right here, I've got 3 positives and 3 negatives. The overall charge is 0. So that's what we mean by neutral, that it has, no charge, or you can think of it as it has a, net charge of 0. So that's neutral. Lithium, when lithium, a metal, combines with a nonmetal, forming an ionic bond, this is what the lithium ion will look like. So let's look at the lithium ion. It still has 3 protons. It still has 4 neutrons. So I'm going to pause and make a little note here. During chemical bonding, the nucleus doesn't change. So the number of protons and the number of neutrons stays the same. What will end up changing is the electrons. So notice now what we have left is we just have 2 electrons. It seems to have lost an electron. So if we try and figure out the charge here, we've got 3 positive protons, we've got 2 negative electrons. So the overall charge is 3 positives, 2 negatives. It has a +1 charge overall. So the lithium ion is what we call a cation. It forms a positively charged ion. Excuse me. And then a quick reminder, vocabulary here. What is an ion? An ion is an atom with a charge. So it is a, charged particle. Okay. So metals tend to form positive ions by losing some electrons. Nonmetals tend to do the opposite. They tend to gain electrons to form negative ions. So let's look down here at fluorine. So if we count things up, it looks like this atom has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 protons in it. And if we count out the blue dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's 10 neutrons. And then the electrons, there are 9 yellow electrons. So in a neutral atom, we'll notice that the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. The overall charge is 0, because I've got 9 positives, 9 negatives, that adds up to 0. All right, down here with your next one, here's a fluorine ion. It still has 9 protons. It still has 10 neutrons, so the nucleus didn't change. Excuse me. If you count out the number of electrons now, it has gained an electron in its outer shell. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 electrons. So I've got 9 protons, 10 electrons. It has a charge of -1. Okay. So this is what we call an anion because it has a negative charge. Oops. And what happens is that lithium, this kind of shows what's happening in context. So when your lithium and your fluorine atoms come together to form a bond, your lithium atom loses an electron. It forms a +1 ion. Your fluorine gains an electron. It's forming a -1 ion. So here's your lithium with a +1 charge. Here's your fluorine with a -1 charge. And then they're going to be attracted together because opposites attract. So that's how we form lithium fluoride. When you're writing out the symbols for these ions, the charge goes in the upper right-hand corner. So if I were to, let's look at aluminum, for example. If I were to look at a neutral atom of aluminum, I would just write the symbol Al with no charge because it's neutral. If I were to write out the symbol for an aluminum ion with a +3 charge, I would write it like this. So if there's nothing written in the upper right hand, we assume that it's neutral, no charge. If it has a charge, you write it on the upper right hand corner there. So that lithium ion we just showed that has a charge of +1, the way that we would write it is like this, Li +1. The fluorine with a charge of -1 would look like this, F1-. So that's how you write those ion symbols. All right, so in the next video, we're going to look at how we can predict the number of electrons an atom will lose or gain. So make a separate video walking through some practice problems.